How we doing, everybody? This is Splash of Gas with Dave Weichert, a NASCAR and racing podcast. NASCAR would be heading out to the Irish Hills to the 2-mile track of Michigan International Speedway. ARCA, trucks, and of course Cup Series would all be in action. ARCA would kick things off on Friday. Gio Ruggiero, the only two-time winner this year on ARCA, would be looking to take his third as Jake Bollman, Connor Mosack, Cletus McFarland, and Squirrel McNutt are ready to take the trophy for themselves. Truck Series is the main event on Saturday. Last year's series champ, Corey Heim, would be back in a TRICON truck. Full-time truckers, Kaden Honeycutt, Ben Rhodes, Layne Riggs would all be ready to go. Plus the full-time Cup drivers of Ross Chastain, Carson Hocevar, Stenhouse Jr., Christopher Bell would all be looking to take the trophy as well. Then the main event, Sunday, for the Cup Series. Last week's winner, Denny Hamlin, looks to take the checkered flag again. Ryan Blaney looks to go back to victory lane after winning in Michigan last year. Yellow flag, green flag, discussions with Dave, paint scheme of the week, NASCAR history time, interview with Ben Rhodes, Fast Davies bets, predictions for Pocono, and so much more on this episode of Splash of Gas. As always, we're sponsored by Magical Travel with Dave, aka Disney Dave Weichert, my father. He will be able to help you with all your Disney and Universal vacation needs. He can be reached at DisneyDaveW@Verizon.net. Please make sure you follow all the Splash of Gas social medias for midweek and on-track updates. Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube are all Splash of Gas with Dave Weichert. Now for the ARCA Series recap. ARCA Series would get the show started out in Michigan. Cletus McFarland would show speed and win his first ever pole at the ARCA level. He would be followed by Jake Bollman, as the two make up the front row, taking the field to green. Cletus leads early until lap 8 when Connor Mosack would take over. Mosack and Bollman restart with 58 laps to go. Bollman to the lead with Gio Ruggiero now up to second. After Bobby Dale Earnhardt spins, Bollman and Gio restart the field. Gio to the lead. Biggest fireworks of the race occurs laps later as Cletus McFarland is in the middle of a 3-wide battle between Ryan Vargas and Andy Jankowiak. Cletus gets loose and triggers a wreck that collects all three of them. Ruggiero would be ruled the leader when the wreck would happen, as shortly thereafter, rain would start to fall. With the race being more than halfway, ARCA would call the race, and Gio Ruggiero would be the winner, his third win of the ARCA season. Now for trivia question time. This week's question is, Denny Hamlin has 3 wins plus the All-Star race under his belt this year already. How many times has Denny won at the Cup level previously at Pocono? Answer coming at the end. Now for the Truck Series recap from Michigan. Trucks will be ready to go Saturday afternoon. Ty Majeski is the fastest in qualifying and wins the pole. Him and Christopher Bell in the 62 take the field to green. Majeski clears and leads until lap 7 when Chris Wright and Frankie Muniz make contact, also collecting Spencer Davis. Carson Hocevar and Majeski restart. Carson gets a big push from Christopher Bell and the two go first and second. After several laps of battling hard for the lead on lap 26, Bell gets past Hocevar for the top spot. Christopher Bell wins stage 1. Bell and Hocevar restart for the second stage. Corey Heim behind them on the second row. Bell and Hocevar each take turns leading, with Bell prevailing and Corey Heim in close third. Bell and Heim would pull away from Hocevar as the two Toyotas battle for the lead. Christopher Bell is able to hold Heim off and wins stage 2. Hocevar and Grant Enfinger restart for the third and final stage. But then they just could not stay green, with 4 wrecks occurring. Hocevar and Kaden Honeycutt restart now with 25 laps to go. Carson leads again. Chandler Smith gets up to second. 4 laps later, Corey Heim passes Honeycutt for third. 7 laps later, Heim gets past both Hocevar and Smith, taking the lead. 6 laps to go. Kaden Honeycutt gets to second. Can he catch Corey Heim? 2 to go. Honeycutt attempts to clear for the lead, but is unable to. Corey Heim holds off Kaden Honeycutt en route to winning in Michigan. Now for the Cup Series recap. Cup Series will be roaring to go on Sunday out of Michigan. Denny Hamlin would be the fastest in qualifying, but his team would elect to make adjustments to the car, which forces them to start from the rear. Tyler Reddick and Carson Hocevar bring the field to green. After 2 early yellows for Connor Zilic, the same pair restart on lap 14. Reddick clears and leads. He starts to put a gap in between him and Ty Gibbs, who gets up to second. Ty would start to cut into that lead, but Reddick is able to stay in front and wins stage 1. Gibbs and Bubba Wallace restart for the middle stage. 2 yellows would occur early in the stage, leading to a restart on lap 80. On that restart, Carson Hocevar bumps John Hunter Nemechek, triggering a multi-car accident involving 7 others. More on that on Discussions with Dave. Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott restart with 26 laps to go in stage 2. Bubba Wallace would lead briefly, but Elliott would pass him laps later. Rest of the stage stays green, and Chase Elliott wins stage 2. Elliott and William Byron restart for the third and final stage. After Zane Smith goes into the wall, again, Elliott and Byron restart. After battling hard for second, Chase Elliott would get loose under Christopher Bell, sending Bell into the wall head first at 200 miles an hour. Thank gosh both drivers were okay, but man, that was a very scary hit to say the least. And after NASCAR does all their monitoring, it was the hardest hit in a next-gen car. And actually the hardest hit ever registered in NASCAR since they started recording those statistics in 2015. Of course, Bell is going to be sore this week and most likely in Pocono, of course. Thankfully, it wasn't worse than that. After over a 20-minute red flag to fix the safer barrier, the crew literally had to use the jaws of life to expand the wall and put more foam in. Daniel Suarez and William Byron restart with 38 laps to go. After having to start from the rear, Denny Hamlin would make a run, making it 3 wide. A lap later, Hamlin clears for the lead. Denny would start to put a clinic down on the field. 14 laps to go. Denny would have over a 5-second lead to Bubba Wallace, who was in second at that point. Could Bubba reel in Denny? No, he couldn't. Eric Jones does make his way up to second, but that would not stop Hamlin. Denny continues to pull away. Denny Hamlin wins by over 11 seconds on Eric Jones. Denny is victorious in Michigan. Quick look back at the predictions we made for Michigan. ARCA, I went with the 28 of Connor Mosack. He finishes 4th in a rain-shortened race. Trucks, I went with the veteran Grant Enfinger. He finishes 11th. Cup, not my best. Went with Brad Keselowski, the local Michigander. Brad finishes 34th. Now for yellow flag, green flag. Green flag, ARCA. Laney Bice qualifies third and finishes fifth. Really strong run for Layne. Trucks, yellow flag. After winning the pole, tough day for Ty Majeski as he finishes 35th. Green flag, trucks. To the non-full-time truckers, drivers from other series, jumping down, have won 7 of the 12 races so far in the truck series. Can some of these full-time truckers defend their series? We'll see as the season prolongs. Yellow flag, cup. Not sure if I should say poor Connor Zilic, but yellow flag for him. When it rains, it pours for the rookie. He finishes last, 37th. Green flag, cup, Denny Hamlin. 2 wins, back-to-back. But he has to win both from the rear and running through the whole field. And sometimes that's just the sport of NASCAR and racing. But what does that 11 team know that no one else is doing right now? Of course, it's going to even out sooner than later. But how long can this 11 team and Toyota set their dominance on the 2026 NASCAR season? Now for discussions with Dave, part 1. Just what we were talking, Denny's dominance. We start Hamlin wins the pole. Team elects to make adjustments. Of course, we really want to know what specific adjustments they made, and every other team wants to know that as well. But Hamlin, multiple wins going into Michigan. His team does forego. They don't get any stage points in stage 1 and stage 2. And as we were just talking in the recap, Hamlin doesn't make it back towards the front until later in the race. And then it was at that point he really dominated. And his lap times at the end, he was nearly making 0.4 seconds to a half second every lap at the end. Denny Hamlin didn't just have a strong day. Man, he was dominant. Now, let's look to the big crash in the race, and that was the one, of course, with Christopher Bell, Chase Elliott. They're battling hard for the second position, and just like we saw in the trucks, ARCA, and then, of course, Cup, saw people in the turns in Michigan fully throttled and kind of in that, inside lane, kind of 1.5 lanes, and just like with Zane Smith, gets loose and spins, and Chase Elliott's on the inside, and his car starts to spin, but then it hooks the other way, going right into the right rear of Bell, and they're full throttle, 200 miles an hour at Michigan, and Christopher hits the wall pretty much straight on. He keeps going. If you watch it in real time, it looks like he brushes it, but he is just, foot to the pedal, pretty much 90 degrees at the wall. And of course, there are so many safety precautions that NASCAR has taken, and that's starting with the safer barrier, which, it spreads the energy of the crash, throughout the wall and hopefully around the car where the driver is. And the next-gen car, as we've seen, has come a long way. Unfortunately, Kurt Busch, I believe it was the first year in that next-gen car, spins at Pocono, backs it in, and he never returns from that crash to racing. His concussions, and obviously Kurt was later in his career at that point, but it took a top driver out of the sport. Of course, NASCAR has made improvements to the impacts and the energy that these drivers are taking with the next-gen car, and that has been improved. And I was very surprised to see how quickly Christopher Bell got out of that 20 car in Michigan on Sunday. A big hit like that, I was expecting him, to get out of the car and fall to his knees like we saw Bubba Wallace do years ago when he pretty much went straight into turn 1 in Pocono. But Bell gets out of the car. Chase Elliott comes up right to him and is honest with him and say, hey, I messed up. That's on me. And I think Bell, as a smart enough driver he is, and knowing the driver that Chase is, he understood there was, they're racing hard for second. But if you go to the stats that NASCAR puts up, and I am no scientist by any means, if you haven't known that already, but the V vector that NASCAR uses to monitor and put a number on these crashes, that impact, as I mentioned in the recap, was the hardest that NASCAR has ever seen. And just very happy and thankful with how hard of an impact it was. That Christopher Bell, he does have a broken wrist that came out later in the week, but he's cleared for Pocono. We know how strong and tough these Cup drivers truly are. Really says a lot about the impacts that some of these cars can take while still keeping the driver, for the most part, protected. Thoughts on the Truck Series race? Heim versus Honeycutt. Of course, Corey Heim wins the Truck Series championship last year, and this year he's running a part-time schedule between that and 2311 in the Cup Series. And as we were saying last episode, Heim will be now running a full-time Cup Series schedule in 2027. In hindsight, in hindsight, I didn't plan that one. And yes, Honeycutt is the one to replace Heim full-time in the 11 TRICON truck. And yes, Corey Heim is still running TRICON equipment in the races that he's entering. And we'll never see this, and we don't know what would happen specifically. But man, I would have loved to see Corey Heim and Kaden Honeycutt. Yes, they are teammates for Team Toyota and TRICON. I would love to see those two have the chance to duke it out for a whole season in TRICON equipment. And Honeycutt, of course, wants to beat the driver that he replaced full-time at TRICON. I totally get that. And Heim says, you gotta beat me, bro. Not that Corey Heim is taking it to Kaden Honeycutt, but Heim is using this opportunity to continue to show out, and he's bringing a whole lot of experience to the Cup Series in 2027 on a full-time basis. Don't think this is the last time we'll see Heim and Honeycutt duking it out on the track this year. Next topic, thoughts on the ARCA race. Cletus McFarland gets the pole. We saw what a wheelman Cletus can be, specifically highlighted in the ARCA race at Talladega, leading for a big portion there at the end. Of course, comes home P2 behind Jen and Kowiak. Cletus continued to show that speed that he has, winning the ARCA Series pole on Friday. But unfortunately for Cletus, in the end, he's trying to go 3 wide, and just like we were saying in Michigan, that spot on those turns, you can get loose pretty quickly. We saw a Cup Series champion, Chase Elliott, have that issue. Of course, the ARCA Series is a great place for Cletus to get that seat time and build, and hopefully we see him maybe run a full-time truck schedule, a full-time Xfinity schedule. We've talked about on that on the show previously. That would be awesome. But I think it truly needs to start for Cletus full-time in the ARCA Series. And it really stinks, the 2 cars that he does take out, Ryan Vargas and Andy Jankowiak. Those 2 guys, smaller teams. Ryan Vargas both those guys having heck of a years to each their own. Vargas is literally in the running for the ARCA championship. Not after Michigan, and fortunately with the wreck, and that team is a smaller team, 1 car, they're looking like they're not going to make it to Pocono, unfortunately. And that's the same for the 71 Class Motorsports with Andy J. Andy J winning, of course, in Talladega, but wrecks 2 races in a row for Andy J, and they're not going to be able to make it to Pocono either. I know per the post-race interview, both of those guys wanted to talk to Cletus, and it's a tough spot for Cleet. Of course, he's new to the sport and racing, trying to learn, trying to get seat time, and gets put into a tough spot. And the one thing with Cletus, which, is a pro, but others can see it as a con, Cletus has the funds to, if he wrecks his car, to be back there next race. Those guys, smaller teams as just mentioned, don't have that necessity. And then that's racing. Just talking about that on the recap with Tyler Truex. Hopefully, Cletus can learn from this seat time and limit those spins that we kind of see him having more frequently, but hopefully now, moving forward, less and less. And that should equal in the equation with more seat time, right? I think that's what Cletus truly needs, and we'll see how he performs for the rest of 2026. Moving right along, and besides the wreck between Bell and Elliott, the true hot button issue with NASCAR was that restart. Carson Hocevar being a little bit too aggressive and kind of turning left to John Hunter Nemechek to a hole that did not seem like it was there. I was not behind the wheel of the 77, but from TV it didn't look like it was there, and that causes Nemechek to go spinning and collecting 7 others. Carson Hocevar, as we said, if he sees literally a dime size of light, a space, he's going to try to put his car in that. And sometimes, is that too aggressive for that part in the race? Sometimes, yes. Other times, no. But Hocevar, with this aggressiveness, as we've seen, puts him in the spotlight. Yes, it eventually did pay off. He gets the win in Talladega earlier this year and, running towards the front, looking fast. That 77, as we know, with Hocevar's win, Suarez's win in Charlotte, Spires is bringing quick bullets to the track. And during the week, Hocevar is being, talked about by other drivers, and of course they're highlighting his aggressiveness, and Hocevar has a little bit of fun with that, and he liked John Hunter Nemechek's message of saying, how aggressive that Hocevar can be, and that John Hunter would never be like that. And I know Hocevar has a following. There are a lot of people that like how aggressive he is, and I do not think Carson Hocevar, as a driver with his aggressiveness, is going to change an ounce. That's not going to happen. At least I don't think anytime soon. But if he continues to do this, he's eventually gonna pay the price. It's gonna come back to haunt him. We have no idea when that's gonna be. It could be next race. It could be in the playoffs. It could be 7 or 8 races from now. And as we have seen at the end of some of these races, when Hocevar is in the mix, yes, Talladega, he closes out and wins. Kudos to him on that, of course. But some of these other races, Hocevar is maybe not getting that push. Other cars are not going to go with him. But in the end, that's just the chess match that every driver is trying to play. Will it pay off again for Hocevar throughout this season? We'll find out. Now, for paint scheme of the week. Cup Series came out for their paint scheme for Pocono, and we're going to keep it towards the front, numerical-wise. The Busch Light Lime car for Ross Chastain is tough. I am a fan of Busch Light. There are a lot of people that do like the Busch Light Apple, Busch Light Lime. They are tasty, just not my cup of tea to drink several. But that Busch Light Lime paint scheme is on the number one for Ross Chastain, and it is tough. You got the Busch Light Mountains, but a lime green change to it, sliced limes on the front. It's cool and eye-catching. And that's my paint scheme of the week. Now for NASCAR history time from Pocono. August 4th, 1974. Richard Petty, the King, dominated NASCAR's first ever race, ran at Pocono, leading 152 of 192 laps onto the victory in a rain-shortened event. Petty defeated Buddy Baker by a commanding 18 seconds, with only 4 of the 35 starters finishing on the lead lap. The win was part of a remarkable 10-win season for Richard in '74, a campaign that ultimately led him to his 5th of 7 Cup Series championships. July 19th, 1992. One of the most violent crashes ever at Pocono Raceway unfolded when Davey Allison was bumped behind by Darrell Waltrip, sending Allison's car into a terrifying series of flips, tumbling 9 times through the infield before coming to a rest upside down. Allison had been dominant up to that point, winning the pole and leading 115 of the first 149 laps before the crash. Despite a broken arm, broken wrist, and collarbone, along with a concussion, Allison's toughness showed as he returned to compete the very next week at Talladega of all places, and that's a driver. Now for Discussions with Dave, Part 2. Big news this week on the NASCAR silly season side. Wood Brothers Racing 21 team has announced that Josh Berry, their current driver from last year and this year, will not be returning in 2027. In a statement, Wood Brothers said, "We thank Josh Berry for all he's done for Wood Brothers Racing and our partners over the last 2 seasons. Josh has been a great teammate, and we look forward to a strong finish to this season. We wish Josh the best moving forward. We will announce who will drive the number 21 Ford Mustang Dark Horse in 2027 soon, and we are excited for what lies ahead for Wood Brothers Racing." And throughout Wood Brothers recently in the Cup Series, Ryan Blaney was with Wood Brothers. Paul Menard was with Wood Brothers. Heck, Trevor Bayne, when he was in his 20s, won the Daytona 500 with Wood Brothers. And that's a team that will take, drivers for a couple years, if it, regardless of if it's an up-and-coming driver or experienced guy like Paul Menard. Typically, 2-3 years, we see Wood Brothers not want to move on, but that's just part of the sport, right? Josh Berry wins at the beginning of last season in Vegas. Berry makes the playoffs, and in the round of 16, he was bit by terrible luck. He wrecks in all 3 of those races, and unfortunately can't advance to the round of 12. And 2026 has not been a friend of Josh Berry so far. Bad luck for that team has already put them in a points hole. And you knew Berry did not have the contract for next year. You kind of thought with his short track prowess and it could get him out of that points hole. And I truthfully thought, why not bring Berry back for a 3rd year? Unfortunately, this year is not going well for him, but I do think a veteran driver like Josh, yes, he's newer to the Cup Series, but he's been racing for a long time, gives you stability. And not that a young driver wouldn't, but if you look at someone that dominated the Xfinity Series last year, Connor Zilic, and I'm going to spotlight him. Look at what he's doing this year. The learning curve for a young driver in the Cup Series is substantial compared to him starting out in the Truck Series, in the O'Reilly Series, right? Looking at the list of candidates, Jesse Love, of course, is the front runner. And by the decision that Wood Brothers has already made with Josh Berry, they think that there's more of an upside with bringing in a new guy. But we still need to wait to see what Wood Brothers' final decision is going to be, who's going to fill the 21 car for next year. By all things looking towards it, it looks like Jesse Love is going to fill that void, but we'll keep our ears to the ground and we'll keep you updated. Very interesting to talk about, though. And we will keep it still on silly season news. And this is actually technically silly season looking towards 2028. Denny Hamlin, as we have mentioned, 2027, he has said is going to be his final year full-time at the Cup level. Now, who fills that 11th seat that Denny will be leaving empty for 2028? Denny has alluded to Brent Cruz, the young up-and-coming driver that's with Joe Gibbs in the O'Reilly Series. Cruz just turned 18 and now is able to race a full schedule on the O'Reilly Series. Brett still looking for his first win. Strongly believe that will be coming sooner than later for him. Gibbs, of course, has other options in the O'Reilly Series. I mean, look no farther than Brandon Jones, who's been a veteran of that series and won races. But it does really seem that Cruz has 100% backing from Joe Gibbs, not only with their group, but seems like financially with the different partners that they have. Brent still has a lot to prove this year, and what can he do with that in 2027? He'll be full-time in the O'Reilly Series. In the end, is Brett able to put a resume good enough to get in the Cup Series in 2028? Time, of course, will only tell, but also, as a diehard fan, it's pretty crazy to think that Denny Hamlin is going to be retiring, and just really cool to monitor that next set of drivers and who specifically is going to take that seat. Now we bring on our guest for the show, and that is Ben Rhodes from the Truck Series. Great conversation talking to Ben. Really excited as he's a two-time Truck Series champ. Here's what Ben had to say. Very excited to bring on our next guest on the Splash of Gas, two-time NASCAR Truck Series champion, driver of the 99 Ford F-150 for Thor Sport Racing is Ben Rhodes. Thanks for joining the show, Ben.
Absolutely, glad to be here.
Yeah, of course. Before we get into the recent action, you grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, racing karts, bandoleros, and legends. What was it like for you racing as a kid at a young age?
Yeah, that's spot on. Yeah, Louisville, Kentucky. You know what? With your family at that time, right? Now, in the NASCAR series, it's professional. You're with the team. You're with all different guys. And there's sponsors and all these other things that are involved. But when you're racing karts with the family at a young age as a kid, you're spending more time together than you get doing anything else. And it was just a total family effort. So I loved it. And we did that in karts and bandos and legends. And it really wasn't until we got into late models or the NASCAR Kaden series that you started working with, different groups of humans that weren't your family. So, it was just a good time. And I look back on that often.
Yeah, awesome. Definitely, feel the same way. Love being at the track myself, and cool. You mentioned the K&N series. That's kind of how you make your splash in the sport, running and winning races for Turner Scott Motorsports. What were like the K&N years for you as a teenager?
Yeah, they were a lot of fun. Back then, the K&N series was very competitive. A lot of big names that we were racing against, and it was a deep field in the series at that time. We had a lot of fun going to places that I'd never been before, that are staples on the NASCAR circuit. So, we went to Bristol and we went to Iowa. I ran Kentucky, but that was an ARCA race that year. We ran a lot of short tracks. We ran at Daytona, not on the big track, but we did, it was like Battle at the Beach. We ran down at Pensacola and New Smyrna, and just a lot of really cool racetracks that, you don't maybe appreciate it at the time, but then once you leave there, you're like, man, we're getting to see this wide swath of just different racetracks, different surfaces. And, you kind of had local drivers that would come into the series, and then you had the regulars that would do the points. And it was just a lot of fun. Some of the best racing in my career. And we won a lot that year. I think we won 5 races and maybe like 6 poles, won the championship. We got Rookie of the Year. And we got Most Popular Driver, and it was just all around a good season for us. And like you said, it was one of those seasons that kind of helped make a splash on the scene for me before going full time in the Truck Series.
Gotcha. Appreciate you breaking down that year. Big fan of short track racing myself, and really cool for you to get that exposure at a young age with the different tracks and the surfaces, like you were just talking, and 2016, you go full-time with Thor Sport, getting your first win in Vegas the following year and second win at your hometown track of Kentucky in 2018. What has it been like for you to work and build fast trucks with everyone at Thor Sport, now going into your 11th year with them?
Oh, it's been an education, that's for sure. I mean, you really never stop learning. Your first season as a rookie, you're just trying to get your feet underneath you. I mean, it's even just the simple stuff, like how to get into the racetrack. Where are you staying? Where do you eat? Like just stupid stuff like that you take for granted as a veteran because you're so used to the routine and you're plugged into it year in and year out. And now there's a lot of really advanced stuff that I'm still learning as we go. And the series has evolved a lot over the years. It's definitely not the same rule book as what we had in 2016 when we started. For one, the bodies themselves have changed a lot. There's a lot of underpanning now that's being done in the series that's in the rule book that wasn't there before. You've got, bump stops now. You've got all kinds of, built motors we had back then. We're running these NASCAR NT1 sealed engines now. There's just a lot of things that weren't there back in the original days. So it's always a learning process. And, I'm not going to say a revolving door, but the rule book changes every year, so it keeps the series on its toes.
Gotcha. Appreciate knowing where your mind is, that you're always trying to learn and get better with that team. And getting into your first championship in 21, the schedule was a little bit strange with being the year after COVID and back-to-back weekends at Daytona. You win the first one on the Tri-Oval, then the following week, this time on the road course. Remember watching both of those races on TV. What were like those 2 races for you to start off the season with a bang in 21?
Oh, man, just a dream come true. I think every kid that wants to race dreams of winning at Daytona. I mean, there's a reason it's got so much hype around it and prestige. They call it the World Center of Racing for a reason. And so to win it on the oval is one thing, but then the very next week to do the road course, which is pretty much the same exact road course apart from one chicane they put in as the 24 hours. And we did that in the rain too. Like half the race was rain, half of it was dry. It was at nighttime, which was, awesome. We're usually never racing a road course at night. So it was pretty much all the variables that you could ask for as a driver to make it extremely special at one of the most special racetracks. So, I mean, those 2 weeks were just a dream. The odd thing, though, is it was back during kind of COVID times, like those protocols were kind of still in effect. So not a lot of fans. So the whole experience was just extremely unique for me. But, I mean, it's something I wouldn't change for the world. And I just thought, man, it's great to look back on that.
Got it. Yeah, being a kid from the Northeast, growing up going to
Pocono and Dover. The first time I walked in the high banks of Daytona in 2022 was, really, really eye-opening. It kind of almost leaves you speechless. And remember when you got out of the truck after the road course win there, and just how excited you were, kind of surprised by that win and performance. And that really set the tone for the 2021 season. I mean, you have those two wins along eight top fives, 16 top tens. Then Phoenix, you finished third in front of Zane Smith, who ran fifth, and route to your first title. What was like that night for you back in Phoenix in the fall of 21?
Oh, it was just special. And what's cool is the two championships that we have. We won them different ways. In 21, we won that one on a long run. I actually, both Zane Smith and Todd Gilliland had passed me. Todd was in the Owner's Points Championship, and Zane was owner and driver. So it was a double whammy. I wasn't going to win either one at that point, and just a really long run till the end. And we passed Todd back after 10 or 15 laps, and then after a long run, we finally got back to Zane and passed him. So it was a lot of up and down emotion in the final stage. I remember talking to our team owners, Duke and Rhonda Thorson, and they're like, man, they thought it was over. They were walking out of the track, and then we got the spot back, and before you know it, we're winning the championship. So, gosh, it's just a special night. It's one of those things that dreams are absolutely made of. I'd raced in the series for so long up to that point, and really hadn't come that close to a championship in really ever. We were always eliminated right before the final round, and that was the first year we made it all the way to the end and capitalized on it. And I would say for as good of a season as we had in 21, we weren't necessarily the favorite going in. We were kind of the dark horse. Like John Hunter Nemechek, I think, was the favorite, along with one other driver, probably Zane Smith, and we were able to beat them both. So we excelled when it mattered most, and I think that's something that kind of defined us, just over the years.
Got it. You mentioned the second championship 2 years later. That was said it was the two championships were won by different ways. 2023 you become a two-time champ. What was different that one? Obviously the emotions are there, but what did it feel to be a two-time champ then?
Well, the two-time championship win, that was all about restarts. That was insane amount of restarts. It seemed like we won the championship 5 different times before it actually happened, because it just kept restarting the race. There just kept being a caution after caution after caution. And the final restart, we sustained really heavy damage to the right front in the championship winning position. So, if we had to go much longer, I don't know if we would have won it. We defended. And then finally we got major damage on a restart, and we still brought it home. The hood and the nose is all buckled up out of the way, pushed out of the way, right front tire and steering wheel's bent out of my hands. But we finished the race and won the championship, but it was really hard fought, and it was, that short sprint, unlike the first one where you had to really manage the tires and take care of the truck and plan out the run.
Really appreciate you breaking down both of the championships. Before we get into this current season, 2025 had its ups and downs for you in the 99 team. 5 top 5s, 8 top 10s. Unfortunately, you fall short of the playoffs. How would you sum up your 2025 season for you and your team?
Yeah, it was difficult. We seemed like we had more downs than ups that year. A lot of just misfortunes, things that we couldn't even really control. Which is similar to this year in some regard. But I'll say this year in 2026, we have more base speed. We have a pole this year. We have quite a few races that I could say, coulda, shoulda, woulda won. And not too long ago, we were hunting for the lead before a few, catastrophic things have happened this season. We were hunting for the points lead. So 2025 was different in that regard. I don't think our base speed was high enough at any point to really go out there and just, to dominate like we needed to. We had a few really good races, but not consistent enough to say, hey, we are, we're out here making a huge splash. Obviously, that credit goes to a couple other teams. But for us this year, we have that base speed. We've shown it at several tracks this year, and a few tracks we were the fastest truck. We just weren't able to close it out. We've had our fair share of mechanical issues and misfortunes, and I was just talking to my crew chief about that, about how, we fell back in the points, yes, but the second that some of this luck turns around, and just, you know, kind of dumb luck, like some mechanical stuff that's completely out of our control, like stuff that we don't even make in house, stuff that's, you know, third parties that make for us that break, or, you know, we get put in the fence on lap 2. There's just a lot of weird stuff that's occurred in 2026, but the speed has been there, performances have been there, and, you know, I think maybe Michigan or San Diego might be the place we could bring it home.
Got it. Totally appreciate to see where your mind's at for this year, and getting to the beginning of this season. You're 12th in Daytona, 4th in Atlanta, then St. Petersburg. We were just talking a couple minutes ago about racing new tracks. That was a new one on the circuit. What was it like getting around downtown St. Pete for the first time there?
Oh, I loved it. I hope we go back. Street courses and truck racing are a great match. I really don't see any reason we don't do at least St. Petersburg again, and more street courses in the future. IndyCar, you know, for that being their venue that they've got a long history at, they were very accommodating to us and treated us well. The fans treated us very well, and it seemed like they were happy that we were there. And the NASCAR fans really, really enjoyed it too. So I loved it. I think that's pretty much the consensus around the entire truck garage, and even from, you know, different folks at NASCAR. So I'd like to see more of it, more St. Pete and more street courses. I think San Diego's a step in that direction. So yeah, it's just fun. The street courses add a whole new element that we usually don't get at purpose-built road courses. The road courses like Watkins Glen and Mid-Ohio and others are very smooth, and you account for that. And when you go to St. Pete, you have to account for manhole covers and, you know, drainage dips and all these things. And at San Diego, we have to account for railroad tracks nonetheless. So it's quite an experience, right? And it's fun for the teams and the crews because we kind of have to rebuild our notebook a little bit just for these places.
Yeah, that's neat. I really appreciate you touching upon that. It's really cool seeing the truck slide around a street course like St. Petersburg as well. A couple weeks ago, trucks had to Dover for the first time, and in over 5 years was there Friday as well for the truck race. Always in awe that just how, you know, fast and quick you guys wrap around that track. What was it like being out at the Monster Mile?
Oh, just awesome. I missed that place. I really did. I ran there for the last race, and then to get to come back, I don't know, it's just weird. You look back at footage, right? You go back through your memories, your notebook, and you say, wow, the series has changed a lot. New drivers, new teams, new setups, and things that are in the rule book that weren't there before. And so you kind of had to mesh it all together and take what you know and take what's new, and it was a lot of fun. And, of course, you know, they had the resin down this time, so the track was wicked fast. But nonetheless, a lot of fun for drivers that have been there before, like myself and Ty Majeski. You know, we were able to lead Thor Sport top of the board right away in practice, which was cool, right? You're able to lean on that experience that you have to try to get your team dialed in quicker than others. So I enjoy when that happens. So Dover gave us a unique experience in that regard. And our truck was fast. I made a speeding penalty on pit road, and that hurt our team for sure. It made it tough for us to get back through the pack. Fuel mileage became an issue, and I ran out of gas. But I think if you look back at our performance, we drove from the back of the field up to 5th before running out of fuel. So had I not made the mistake, I think we could have had a really, really solid.
Gotcha. Yeah, weren't the only one to have the fuel issues at the end. You mentioned your teammate Ty Majeski. I've seen him run at New Smyrna before in the late models. Then you know, Matt Crafton, who retired recently. What's it like to work with some of the other drivers and, you know, share your notebooks with your teammates at Thor Sport?
Man, it's a lot of fun getting to know those guys. We're competitive, right, in all that we do. So we're competitors first, or maybe we're teammates first, competitors second. I haven't really figured that out yet, but we work together, we share notes, and we do everything we can to win individually, but we try to build each other up at the same time. And that's a difficult dynamic. You know, it's not something that comes naturally to a lot of people. There's a lot of maturity required with that. And I've got really mature teammates that know that, and you know, we build each other up. Like last night, for example, we were playing basketball and pickleball together. You probably don't get that from teammates at other race teams. You know, they usually go hang out with other drivers they might have relationships with, or maybe friends outside the sport. I've never really had that relationship with other drivers, but that just shows you the culture at Thor Sport Racing that, not having that relationship with any driver at all, we're able to build that as teammates at this place. I think that's something special that probably most teams don't have.
That's really neat. Then that's awesome that you guys have that relationship, and hopefully it in the long run pays off on the track. Unfortunately, after Dover, there's the very sudden and untimely passing of Kyle Busch, the champion and legend of the sport. You've raced against him on the truck level for a while. What was it like racing against Kyle?
Oh man, what a legend! I love Kyle Busch, I really do. And every time we got to race with him, it's such a blessing. And he was such a supporter of the Truck Series, like a truck guy through and through. And I'm probably one of the few people that are a supporter of his running as much as possible in the Truck Series. They limited his ability to do it. I didn't really think that was right. I liked racing against him every chance I could. And so, even, we hear about after his passing, he was texting NASCAR about, just trying to run more truck races. He's like, lobbying, what if we make it call it the over 40 rule? Maybe I can run more races then. It just shows you what type of racer he was and how much he loved the series. And there's people that run in the Truck Series that are veterans that probably didn't love it as much as him. He owned a team for years and years. So naturally, for that reason, I have the utmost respect for him because I've been a truck guy now for 10 years. So to have somebody like that puts their heart and soul into the series as an owner and a competitor, it's just super cool. He also, he was like, he's Kyle Busch, so you could run against him extremely hard, and he always put you and himself in good situations. So you could run really hard, and right as it was about to get ugly, and he knew the limit. There's a lot of times in the Truck Series, even with other veterans, that you can't get that close to the limit and race that hard without something happening, right? So it shows his talent level, his experience, his ability to see the big picture. Not many people have that, and that's why it was Kyle Busch.
Yeah, got that right. Thank you so much for sharing upon that. I really appreciate that. Looking towards the last weekend out in Nashville, qualifying gets canceled about halfway through with the rain. You start 6th, get stage points in the first 2 stages, finishing 7th and 6th. In the end, loose tire on pit road, end up finishing P28. How would you sum up your night in Nashville?
Oh, just bad luck, really. We were 6th, or we were 7th in the first stage, and then 6th, and what happened is 25 laps to go on a restart. We would go down to turn 1 and the right front tire just lets go. I don't know rhyme or reason why. We didn't really have any. We had no contact with anybody to cause it. It just went down, and I took a few trucks out with me that sustained some damage. But we kept it out of the wall, come down pit road, put some tires on it. And like you said, we had a loose wheel. But the damage at that point was done. We were already a lap or 2 down because of that tire with significant damage to the truck. So. Unfortunate because I think we were running 6th at the time. I thought we could have at least got a top 5, perhaps even won the race. We were in front of the race winner at that time for track position, and right before that run, we had passed them. Just so, the speed in the truck was there, and the restarts were there to allow us to get the track position. It just was untimely what happened. So, that's racing for you. Those things happen, and we just minimize it however we can. The problem is we don't know how to mitigate that. If it was just debris on the track, there's nothing we can do about it. So we're just going to take our lumps where we get them and move on here to Michigan and San Diego. The key is to not be unfocused by that. I don't think anybody on this team is. We're just, put our heads down and keep digging and know that can happen. So now we just got to focus on the next one.
Got it. Seems like you guys are bringing fast trucks to each and every track, and just got to tie one of these together completely. Last question. You just mentioned Michigan. NASCAR is heading out to the Irish Hills. I'm running at Michigan International. In 6 previous starts, you have 3 top 10s, 5 top 15s, including 4th last year. Seems like you guys are really hauling the mail out there. What's it like getting around Michigan, and what do you expect the racing to be like on Saturday?
Yeah, I love this place. It's the home track for Thor Sport Racing. That Mid-Ohio or Michigan, anywhere up here around Sandusky, Ohio, we always get a big turnout from our fans of Thor Sport Racing, people from the race shop. And, of course, this is, it's the home race for Ford Motor Company. So we want to get Ford Racing in Victory Lane. So it's special for a lot of reasons. The race itself is always exciting because it's very aerodynamic dependent. And in the Truck Series, fans can hear that word and think, scary. But at Michigan, it means a lot of passing and a lot of calculated passes by the drivers. You get this huge speed disparity at the end of the straightaway by the drafting truck, and he has to figure out what to do with it. Take your runs and complete the passes, or take the run and don't complete the pass, and before you know it, you've lost 3 spots. So as the driver, calm, calculated, steady decision-making is key. There's the speed that you feel here is awesome. I love it. So it's all the things that you want as a driver: the high speed, the excitement, using your brain to try to figure out how to be better than the next guy. It's what racing's made of, man.
Awesome. Yeah, that track is a lot of fun to watch on TV. Definitely got to get out there at some point. And safe travels this weekend, Ben. Really appreciate the time. Best of luck for the rest of the season, and hope to talk to you soon, all right?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again for having me.
Yep, of course. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Hope you all enjoyed the conversation with Ben. I sure did. Now, Tire Diaries for Pocono. NASCAR will introduce a new right side tire for Pocono that combines the compound ran at Pocono last year with the construction used at several of the intermediate tracks from this year. While the right side tires will be more familiar to the teams, as this will be the 4th consecutive weekend with those specific ones: Charlotte, Nashville, and just Michigan. O'Reilly Series will run left side tires most recently used at Dover, along with right side tires introduced at Iowa from last August. Goodyear Racing Eagles will also be in action at the 24 Hours of Le Mans and at the Bristol Dragway for the Super Grip NHRA Thunder Valley Nationals. Now the drivers to look out for at the Tricky Triangle out in Pocono. Because guess what, folks? There's a place you want to go down in Pocono. Thank you, Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys. Starting off with the ARCA Series, gonna have several fast female drivers in this one. We start that off with Jade Averdezian in the 15. Then we'll move to Layne Riggs, who had a P5 run in Michigan, qualified 3rd. What can she do in the 77? I think a lot. Then Isabella Robusto in that 55. Can we see Isabella get to the front in Pocono? Then to last week's winner, Gio Ruggiero. Guy that finished 2nd, him in the qualifying last weekend. That's none other than the 20 Nitro driver, Jake Bollman. When is Jake going to make his splash in the victory lane this year? Think he can do it? Just when will that be? That's the big question. Daniel Dye back in the 24. Can he have another strong ARCA run? I sure think so. Another two youngsters, Gavin Boschel in the 25, Carson Brown in the 28. Thomas Annunziata. Pocono is a home track for the Colts Neck, New Jersey native. Then last but not least, from Greenwood, Indiana, the Pizza Man, Brayton Laster. Now the drivers to look for, Pocono, the O'Reilly Series. Start off with several Cup drivers that are jumping down for this one. First, Cole Custer in the 0 for SS Greenlight Racing. We have seen Custer be victorious at Pocono several times before. What can he do in the 0? Then you got the youngster Connor Zilic. He won last year at Pocono. Hopefully the added seat time can help him at the Cup level. Then a guy that's going to be a favorite, the 88, this time driven by William Byron. Move into the full-time guys. Jesse Love in the 2, Justin Allgaier in that 7, RCR and JRM accordingly, of course. But 2 fast cars. I think they'll be showing out in Pocono. Moving to Toyota, Joe Gibbs, Brent Cruz, Brandon Jones, the 2 guys from JGR I'll be looking out for. Jesse Love's teammate, Austin Hill, in the 21. He's running that full-time Cup schedule in the 33. Does the added seat time help Austin at the O'Reilly level? Sure think so. Doesn't hurt, right? Then last but not least, look out for Sam Mayer in the 41. Now, the drivers to look out for: Pocono Cup Series, starting with the guy that won the last 2 races. And guess what? He's won 7 times before at Pocono in the Cup Series alone. That's the 1-1-11 of Denny Hamlin. We'll keep it in Joe Gibbs. Hamlin's teammate, Chase Briscoe, won Pocono last year in the 19. Several 4s to look at: Ryan Blaney, Team Penske, and RFK. They've been silent this year for the most part, but Chris Buescher, Ryan Preece. Buescher has won before in Pocono. Can he get a top 5 finish? I don't see why not. Top HMS drivers I'm looking for: Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson. His teammate John Hunter Nemechek finished 6th in Pocono last year, but after a P2 run in Michigan, expect Eric Jones to get into top 10 as well. Now, for Fast Davies bets. O'Reilly Series, Cole Custer for a top 5 is plus 700. I get he's an SS Greenlight equipment, but I think Cole can maximize that. I think he's going to have a little bit more help from Haas Factory this weekend, it sounds like. Believe that's a solid one. Cup Series, Eric Jones for a top 10 is 165. We're just talking about him. Now for trivia question time. This week's question is: Denny Hamlin has 3 wins plus the All-Star Race win under his belt this year already. How many times has Denny won at the Cup level in Pocono? If you were just paying attention, I kind of just mentioned it. Sorry to spoil that one. Answer: Denny Hamlin has 7 career Cup wins at Pocono and is the most among any Cup Series driver all time. Now, predictions for Pocono. ARCA, gotta ride the hot hand, Gio Ruggiero. We've seen Joe Gibbs be really dominant there before. Think the youngster Gio goes to victory lane. O'Reilly, a lot of good options in this one, and William Byron, realistically, could walk away with it. But Joe Gibbs, I'm staying on that Joe Gibbs train, Toyota, if you haven't picked it up already. But give me Brent Cruz. Think the rookie gets his first win at the O'Reilly level. And Cup, Denny's Day on Sunday. That's who I'm picking. As always, we're sponsored by Magical Travel with Dave, a.k.a. Disney Dave Weichert, my father. He will be able to help you with all your Disney and Universal vacation needs. He can be reached at DisneyDaveW@Verizon.net. Please make sure you follow all the Splash of Gas social medias for midweek and on-track updates. Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube are all Splash of Gas with Dave Weichert. Brings us to the end of this week's episode. Really hope you all enjoyed the interview with Ben Rhodes. That was a blast. If you're in New Jersey this weekend, please come out to Wall Speedway for one of the crown jewel races of the year, the Garden State Classic. Splash of Gas will be keeping you up to date from the pits all day and night Saturday. And hope to see you all out at Pocono if you're in the area on Sunday. Till next time, everybody, Splash of Gas out.